Hello, and welcome to the Rest, Repair, Recover podcast. I'm Susie Bolt. This is a space for anyone who's navigating chronic illness. We are here to share real stories, helpful insights, and honest conversations about what it really takes to help yourself heal a tiny bit every day. So whether you're in bed listening, you're on a gentle walk, or you're just needing some company as you go about your day, I'm so glad that you're here. So I am very, very delighted to welcome Tara to the Recovery Interview Story Gang. Tara came into my world a while ago and came into it because of a post-vaccine issue. So you weren't an infection, as far as you were aware. It was definitely a response to the vaccine. And at some point on Tara's journey of recovery, she found me and the work I do and then attended the phone program. But before we go into any of that, I am going to ask Tara to introduce herself because Tara has a really wonderful career that was very, very much blighted by this injury. And I want to just have you tell us a little bit about who you are, Tara, and what you do.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here. Thank you, Susie. My name's Tara Brendell. I'm a contemporary dancer and choreographer, and I run an integrated dance company called Creaglan here in Ireland. And integrated dance is basically a place where people with and without physical disabilities get together and dance. And I run kind of a professional level one. So we train people with physical disabilities to become professional dancers. And then either I choreograph or other choreographers come in and work with us. And then we tour nationally and internationally. So that's my career.
Yeah, beautiful. And one of the things that I want to just say is Tara gets dyspraxia and dyslexia screen fatigue. So if we see her looking off into the distance at her very beautiful view out to the sea, may I add, it's because she's resting her eyes. So we just wanted to get that one clear. So Tara, tell us about when you had the vaccine and what happened.
Yeah, so I had two previous shots of the Pfizer vaccine, and I'd been totally fine after both of them. And I'd been really delighted to get them because I was working with vulnerable people.
Right.
And then the third shot, I was in the States and my partner's American, and I was about to come home and go on tour. And so I thought, I'll just get it here. It'll be easier. So my partner and I went to a pharmacy and got the vaccines. And 5 minutes later, I knew something was really, really wrong.
Wow.
And my heart just started going crazy. And I felt very weirdly dizzy, but not like any dizzy I'd ever felt. Mm-hmm. And so I told the pharmacist, and they took my blood pressure, which was kind of off the chart. And yeah, it kind of just went downhill from there.
Can I ask you, was it the Pfizer or was it a different type of vaccine?
It was Pfizer. It was my third dose of Pfizer.
Interesting. So the body was used to this. It had had two before, and then the third one, it went, no.
Yes. But two other things happened. One is they didn't aspirate the needle. I don't know if that means anything or not, but it definitely didn't give me that kind of breathing space in myself of like, it's going to happen. It was just bam.
Okay.
And also I was rushing because we went to the wrong pharmacist. And so we were rushing when we got there. And the person who gave it to me was also rushing because we'd made her late and she was going on a lunch break. So everything was very hectic. And the first two, I'd got them in Ireland. I'd been in this really long line of people. We'd all been chatting. I had a lovely chat with the nurse before it happened. It was just a completely different environment.
Very typical Irish. Let's just have a good old chat. Hi, how you doing? I love that. Okay, so but interestingly, within a matter of minutes for you, you noticed that something wasn't quite right. So what happened next? What was the kind of sliding slope?
Yeah, so then my heart sort of calmed down and they sent me home and I was all fine. And then the next day I was shopping and I squatted down to get something from a lower shelf. And again, all the same things happened. My heart went crazy. I felt really breathless. I felt dizzy. And I went outside and I started having chest pains. And I thought, God, I think I'm having a heart attack. I'm this really active professional dancer. But that's all I knew, because I obviously didn't know anything about any of this. So I said to my partner, I think we need to go to the emergency room. So we went to the emergency room and I told them I thought I might be having a heart attack. And they did a million tests. It was America, so they did everything. And nothing showed up on anything except that my D dimer was much higher than it should have been.
Right.
And by then I was kind of shaking all over, and they didn't really know what the shakes were. It cost, just as an aside, cost $12,000 to be at the emergency room for 3 hours. And the main doctor was just incredibly patronizing and basically told me I was having an anxiety attack. And, I just got the kind of hysterical woman kind of fob off.
Which we so love.
Yes.
We love that. Okay. So then what did you do? You were given this all clear from, the battery of tests.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So I knew something was wrong because I'm a dancer. I know my body really well.
Absolutely.
So I knew I wasn't quite right, and I was just kind of going slowly. I was in a foreign country. I didn't have any access to a doctor. I felt like I should go and see a cardiologist. So my partner and I just ran around trying to find a cardiologist, which took a few weeks and was incredibly stressful. And meantime, I was just kind of resting, but I was still going for little walks every day and kind of building them back up the way I would as a dancer. And one day I managed to walk for about 10 blocks, which felt really good. And the next day, this was about 10 days after my vaccine, I walked about half a block and I just completely collapsed. Everything felt completely wrong. And from then onwards, my heart just went crazy, and it was just beating rapidly all the time and having weird skips. And my body started to feel weirder and weirder. I was having aches down my arms. It was harder and harder to breathe. Everything in my body kind of went like this. I had weird kind of numbness and pain. And that basically just went on and on and on. At some point, I did get to see a cardiologist in the States, and they put me on I think they're called a Holter monitor, where you wear something for a whole week. And that was at the point where it was really at its worst. And I wrote to them and I just begged them to give me something. I felt like there must be something that could calm my heart down.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And then finally, I had my second time with them, and they said, look, there's nothing wrong with your heart. You can press this thing when you feel there's something wrong with your heart. And I tapped it apparently 150 times over the week.
Yeah.
And he said it really patronizingly, like, oh, you tapped it 150 times. But something was clearly really wrong.
Yeah.
And he did give me the chart. And so I was able to bring the chart home of the Holter monitor.
Yeah.
And after about a month of this, my heart started to calm down, and I felt like maybe I could get on a plane home. Obviously, I was dying to come home at that point. So this was 2 months after I was due to come home. I finally flew home. And then from then on, basically, my energy levels just got lower and lower and lower and lower. And by, I don't even know when it was anymore, let's say, I came home at the beginning of March. By June, I couldn't get up the stairs anymore. And I spent the entire summer sleeping in the garden because it was the easiest thing to do. I just slept in a tent. And that just carried on. Oh, I just want to sidetrack a little bit. Back in April, when I first came home, I discovered your amazing work. And I wanted to start doing it, but very soon after that, I couldn't look at a screen. I couldn't
Yeah.
listen to anything recorded.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for about 6 months, I knew that your work was out there, but I was steadily getting worse.
Yeah. You weren't
Um,
ready. So let me just ask you a question here. Was there a point at which you went, I'm linking this experience to the vaccine?
oh, I knew
Right.
straight away, five
Yeah.
minutes afterwards, that it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. Something's not right.
Yeah.
Was any of the medical professionals that you spoke to linking it, or sort of say, were any of them linking it to the vaccine? Because they must have been getting more and more people coming in by this point. You won't have been the first uh,
Yes.
saying, I had the vaccine and then this happened.
Hmm.
Any of them mention that to you?
Yes. Luckily, my own GP here in Ireland.
So back at home.
Did, yes. When I got home was the first time. And but there was nothing she could do, and she offered me gabapentin because I had a lot of pain by then all
Yeah.
over my body, and my kidneys were just absolutely
Yeah.
agony. But yeah, there was nothing she could do really, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to take gabapentin.
No. I love the fact that you decided to live in a tent in the garden. So just tell me a little bit more, a bit more about that decision. It doesn't say it's not. No one has ever decided to put themselves from a house into a tent. So Tara, like this is obviously telling us something about you as a personality, which I adore. But why?
Well, I had to just be outside all the
Right.
time. Like, even if I had to crawl outside, or even if I was having a really terrible day, at some point in the day, I would manage to get outside.
Yeah.
And I said jokingly to my next door neighbor, maybe I should just sleep in a tent. And
Right.
then I realized that actually it would be the best place to be. It was right next to a tap. So I could still brush my teeth and wash my face, which had been getting increasingly harder. I could wash my hands, I couldn't be in a bath or a shower by that point. I couldn't
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
around water.
Yeah.
Um, but I'd be able to do that much, and I could pee in the garden, and it just all made a lot of sense. It was right next to the house. Like, here's the deck of the house, and here's the tent.
Got it. Got
Um,
it.
and it meant felt like my safe, happy place to be outside.
Mm.
The garden went totally wild that year, so I was just
Yeah.
surrounded by wildflowers. And
I think there's also something, the body does know what it's calling for to help heal, and so that call to be in nature, that call for perhaps cooler air on you than the house was able to offer. All of those things will have probably been sort of talking away in your less aware, less conscious awareness going, be there, out, connect with the earth and recenter yourself, which I love. I love that you're so in tune with yourself that you went, I'm going to get better out here, not in here. It's great.
yeah.
So how long were you in the tent for?
Maybe a couple of months or something.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had this feeling that the thing I really wanted to do was just be at the sea all the time.
Yeah.
So whenever we could, my partner would drive me to the sea, and I would just crawl down the beach and lie on the beach kind of for as long as I could, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I really, if they found a way to just be at the beach 24 hours a day, I felt like that was going to be my healing.
Amazing.
At this certain point later on in the summer, my partner, bless her, got a kayak and put me out in a kayak and tied it to the shore so I could just bob in the kayak right on the edge of the shore. And then later on in the summer, she just towed me out in another kayak so I could go to my favorite beach, which you can only get to by walking across
Right.
fields.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Oh my God, I've just got this image of of your partner kayaking with this kind of slightly,
Just lying there.
perhaps a dead body looking like sort of strapped to a canoe behind her. I'm hoping not too many people saw that and understood. Um, so when I met you, when you made it onto the Fern program, just tell me at what point in your recovery was that then? I don't remember the details. How many months were you in at that point?
I was about 10 or 11 months. What finally happened is I was on a waiting list to see a local neurologist, and
Mm.
he was the first person who really could actually help me. He did a ton of tests. He looked at the Holter monitor from January and said, "Oh, you have sinus tachycardia." But because
Right.
sinus tachycardia isn't actually a cardiologist's problem, The
Okay.
cardiologist said my heart was fine.
Yeah.
And he did a tilt test. He discovered I had POTS,
Mm.
and he put me on a beta blocker. He put me on metoprolol, and it didn't help any of my energy levels, but
Mm.
it just calmed down a lot of the horrible sensations in my body.
Yeah.
And and it was kind of the first building block.
And at some point, you must have become a little less screen sensitive because you showed up to me. And now, what I remember is that when you first encountered the fern, you were using a wheelchair, weren't you, to get
Yeah.
around?
Yes.
So, this is someone who's been very, very active in her life. For them to be using a wheelchair, what? Just tell us a little bit about how that was. You know,
Yeah, it was actually just really useful. I
right,
was really
right, good.
grateful I had a wheelchair because
Yeah.
we used it to dance, and it just meant that I could get out in the world. I couldn't use it for quite a long time, but maybe about month 7 or something, I was able to start using it, and that's yeah, it was really great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so you did the fern. Now, let me, I'm not here to, to kind of supersell the fern in any way, but that was a part of your recovery journey. What was it, do you think, that you took out of that journey that most helped you move forwards?
Can I just backtrack? Because I'd love to talk about when I first started doing your work.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sure.
Um, so I took the metoprolol, and then after that, I meant I could have a little bit of screen time. Couldn't really look at the screen, but I could listen to it. And I didn't know how to find you except on YouTube. So I started doing your YouTubes, which were really useful to me because you were sick at the time when you were doing them. And so that was so reassuring. And the thing that I really took away from them is you had this one that you did one day when you weren't feeling well yourself. And you did like just this 20-minute thing where you said, it's really important to just do something. I'm just going to sit here and breathe and do a tiny bit of stretching. And that was a real changer for me of like, oh, even if I'm not feeling well, it's important that I do a tiny bit of movement and a tiny bit of breathing and a tiny bit of kind of connecting with someone else in this way.
Oh,
So
I
I
love
did.
that. Can I say what that one is called? Because I know the one you mean. That's I think it's meditation for a relapse. I think is
Yes.
yes, okay. And I was having a terrible time, but actually one of the things that was happening for me was I knew if I made a little video about it, it would make me do the practice and it would make me do something to look after myself. So I kind of allowed myself permission to go up to my studio and press play with the camera button and, or should I say record and actually capture myself doing something. So I love that that has, gone on to help you. And that so that was the first piece that you kind of went, oh, this feels good. Here's someone that gets it.
Yes, it was just such relief. And then I started doing your YouTube videos because I didn't know how to find your website. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't have any way of getting into it. I knew it was there, but I didn't. So I just doing your YouTubes, and they really, really helped me. It was like my whole nervous system finally went, oh,
Yes.
something really began to shift. It was just, I was doing your RRR, and they were quite gentle ones because Ross was sick, so it was just you. There
Okay.
wasn't loads of chatting, and it was just this amazing place that I could just start. And
Yeah.
then after a while, I found your website, and then I started joining up and doing all the classes. And they just became this treat, I mean, all the things you say about working with other people and being around other people, it was like suddenly my whole world opened up, and wasn't just me, there were more of us.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It is it's right. Look, it's
Yeah.
emotional kind of response when we finally meet a group of people that know exactly what you're going through and they're going through it too. And they want to hold your hand and go through it with you.
Yes.
It's so
And this
powerful.
incredible love that you kind of poured out to us all was just amazing. Like I remember at the end of one of them, you just said, it was one of those ones where you calm us all down and then you leave, and you just said, lots of love, everyone. And it just made me cry. It was like, oh, we're getting loved. I'm getting loved in all this. And I mean, that's the core of the healing, isn't it? It just, oh, it was so amazing. It was really profound. So I didn't
Wow.
want to skip straight to the fern
Oh, I
because your
can see what.
videos really, really started to shift things for me.
Amazing. I love that videos that I've just put up on a YouTube channel that I created to hold all this stuff can have such a profound effect. That was my whole goal. I just want to be able to help. Um, and I'm going to share the ideas that I have in this crazy journey that everyone else is on. But the thing that I knew that I needed, and maybe because I'd had a very difficult, time in my marriage for the kind of decade prior, I knew I needed love to help me recover. And so in my loving of others, I knew that was going to be this circular thing that was coming back. And I just had so much love to give. And I was just kind of so happily and still do so happily kind of share it with everyone because it's so important to have the sensation of love inside your body and to feel love and to feel taken care of and to get that love back. For me, the love has been the kind of umbrella for the whole piece that we do, really. I want people to come away going, I feel like I'm a little bit more loved than I was before. And that feels good. So I love that you've picked up on that because it is, for me, that's my kind of secret ingredient. But it's not one that I talk about very often because people are like, what? You're healing everyone with love, are you? Okay. Well, yes, I think I am actually. So yeah. Okay, great. So you did that. You found YouTube. You then
Yes.
found the 360mindbodysoul.co.uk rest, repair, recover program. And then from there, you will have heard about Fern. So I'm sensing now already that there was progress being made for you.
Yeah, definitely,
Right.
definitely. And it became more and more that the only thing that was still wrong with me was that I didn't have any energy,
Yeah.
or that if I tried to get out of my chair and walk, that I would start shaking or feel exhausted the next day. But
Yeah.
all the symptoms were beginning to really calm down.
Great. Wow. Okay. So you started Fern at about month 10, did you say? Well,
No, I
yeah.
started the YouTube at month 10,
Month 10.
and I
Okay.
started Fern back in January. So that was a year after I'd had the
Okay.
vaccine. Yeah.
Okay. And so we get a lot of people who sort of get to that point and then, you're getting a little bit more mobile. The energy is a big thing to shift. There's still some symptoms, but, after a year of being unwell, we have a completely different mindset around what it's like to inhabit our bodies. And we're very fearful and fear based around our decision making about what we can do, what we can't do. And so you joined the Fern. Now, what was it that drew you to the Fern? Was it just because we talked about it sometimes in class? What was it that you thought, I think I'm ready to do that?
I don't really know. I mean, I just got the email. I was in bed. I was looking at it on my phone and I just thought, I think I need to do this.
Yeah.
I don't honestly know what it was. I think maybe it was partly the NLP because I'd already done some neurolinguistic stuff
Yeah.
and that resonated for me, but it was mainly just instinctual.
Great. Okay. So then let me come back to that question that I tried to ask you 10 minutes ago. What was it, do you think, looking at that experience that you had? So the Fern is a 7-week process that we go on. And it's a small group. So it's very much about connecting with other people, isn't it? You go on a journey together with others and you share it with them. What was it that was the magic in there for you? Because that really propelled you forwards, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, the absolute aha moment was the video that you showed of how the amygdala starts off being sick and then it heals, but then something happens and then it goes into this whole big pattern of all these different symptoms that are actually just happening from the amygdala.
Yes. Okay. So
That was just mind blowing for me.
the vicious circle of chronic symptom experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, and I think sometimes when we have it explained like that, um, when we can see, here is a theory that many people have as a theory, and it's quite difficult to prove because our nervous systems are very difficult to test. But if this theory is correct around the amygdala and the insula basically being stuck in this kind of waving, terrible kind of fire alarm alerts inside the body, based on anything that might even give you a whiff of, too much exercise, too much emotion, too much, of anything that then shuts the system down. The whole of the mind and the body thing really starts to make sense because, yes, of course, the brain isn't interested in you having a deeply fulfilling life. The brain is interested in keeping you alive, and it will do that by any means, which might mean just kind of shutting you down. If you're going to try and do too much, it will say, no, 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 I'm going to take the keys from your car away and you're going to stay home because I don't trust you with your body. So I love that that made sense to you because I think some people find that bit really difficult because then, of course, there's a part of them that goes, so you're saying I'm responsible. It's like, no, 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 no. Your brain is so complex and so much bigger and smarter than your conscious person, you yourself. There's no way that we can control that, but we can definitely begin to influence our response to that. So what did you start to do you think, that really began to help you, particularly with the fatigue, to get you out of that wheelchair? What was it that you were doing?
Well, two things kind of simultaneously. One was I decided I needed to just start walking a little bit every day.
Mm.
And I think it went back to your video at the beginning that I saw that was like, even if you're having a bad day, do a little bit of something.
Yeah.
And the thing I was most hungry to do was walk. I was so hungry to go on walks again. And you also were talking about joy and the importance of joy. And that was my main joy, even more than dancing. I just really wanted to walk out in nature.
Yeah.
So I started each day to walk. Like the first day, I walked to my driveway.
Yeah.
The next day, I walked out onto the road. The next day, I walked down to the first gate. And I literally would walk about 10 or 15 steps more each day. But as I was doing that, I was doing a combination of the NLP stuff that you'd taught us on the phone. And then also, I'd done something called the Hoffman process years ago, which teaches you to rewire your neural pathways with visualizations. So I was doing these particular visualizations around my deepest fears, of what would happen if I walked.
Right. Absolutely.
And the thing that Hoffman does is it pattern traces it back through your family. So I was doing it, like, let's say about my heart, I was looking at my mother's heart and my grandmother's heart and their history of their heart and looking at that, or their relationship to walking. So I was doing these visualizations as I was walking.
Amazing.
And then whenever I got to the end of that day's walk, I would just have this real like I'd really make myself as happy and as joyful as possible.
Amazing.
Experience. And I had one day when I was really tired and I really didn't want to walk at all, but I went out. I had a much shorter walk, but it was snowing. And there were just flakes of
thank
snow.
you.
Just so gorgeous.
So for the people that will never do the fan, what Tara's just described is what I call my 5% stretch protocol. So you take something that you really want to do, that you know is going to be integral to your kind of joy factors in life. And for Tara, it was walking, and you just do tiny little bits. So the 5% stretch, you do 5% of it. It might just be you start by putting your shoes on and then taking them off again. It might be then that you can go out of the front door and sit on the front step and then come back in. So tiny, tiny, tiny. And you can stay at any of the 5% stages for a while if you need to, but just always think about, well, I wonder what next. Because every time you make a little success, that evidence goes into the brain and the brain goes, oh, I could do that. I could do that. And that's okay. But never do a 50% jump. Never go to, 75. It sounds like Tara did a really great demonstration of it. The other thing that I recommend people do, so Tara's talking about using visualizations from the Hoffman process, and I know about the Hoffman process. That's a really beautiful, quite intensive program you did there. But another really simple thing you can do is just take your phone with you and use the camera and take pictures of things around you as you're walking or as you're going out into nature, whatever you're doing. Because what you're doing then is you're not obsessing with the body and becoming hypervigilant around what's happening. Am I okay? Am I safe? You're going, oh, look, that looks beautiful. Oh, look at that tree. Oh, I haven't seen it from this angle before. Or, oh, look at the way the gravel is under my feet. I'm going to take a picture of that. So it's about getting the brain to stop focusing on fear and start looking for the opposite of fear, which is joy. And I think that is actually that combo of those two things, the 5% and the looking for joy, are the magic tools that you need. That's it. And you just keep doing it, tiny, tiny little bits, building up evidence in the brain, which then builds up confidence in the body, which allows the kind of vicious circle of chronic illness to be interrupted. And you have little pockets then that start to become good, which then begins to let the body and the mind go, maybe we can do this. So at what point would you say you were back to being, a little bit more like yourself?
Mm. I would say about a month or 6 weeks into the Fern program, I was driving again, very short distances. I was walking again, very short distances, but I was going out for walks. And then the Fern program ended at the end of March. And in April, because you were like, look, going on holidays is really important. I went on 2 holidays. I went one sometime in March. My partner and I just went away to a lovely hotel by the sea for 3 or 4 days. And I just walked. And by the end of it, I was walking, a mile or something, which felt great. And I got into a swimming pool. I got into water for the first time. That was lovely.
Yeah.
But then in April, I was so much better that I decided to go on holiday by myself to Mallorca.
Yes.
And I met one of my lovely Ruby Fern group there. And I just had a week by myself, well, with my Fern group, but, without my partner supporting me, without anyone supporting me.
Amazing.
And again, I just walked more and more every day. And my curiosity really helped me. I always wanted to know what was around the next corner. I was in this beautiful Mallorquian landscape, and I wanted to go to the next beach and the next beach. So by the end of that week, I was walking 3 miles.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
What a feeling to be able to be back in your body, to be back home again. So one of the questions that I want to ask you is, how has having had that year where your body was not the body that you knew, how has having had that year influenced your work now, knowing the work you do is with people using movement who have disabilities of all kinds? Tell me a little bit about how that's influenced you.
I don't know that I totally know yet, but one of the things that I did is that my partner and I had begun work on a piece about hidden disabilities, and
Yeah.
she's a visual artist, and we were trying to work out a way to bring visual art and dance together. And we both have hidden disabilities, so we were making a piece about that, but it really didn't make sense for me to talk about dyslexia when I'd been through the year that I'd been through last year. So my part in the show actually became about my whole inner experience of having a vaccine injury and my recovery. And we started kind of in March. Well, no, actually, I started in February while I was still using a wheelchair. So I'd get pushed into the dance studio and I'd spend the day by myself in the dance studio working. And then my partner and I started working together in March. And even though I didn't want to, I talked about my experience and I recorded it. And it wasn't like this. It wasn't the nuts and bolts. It was really the inner experience.
Yeah.
I talked about feeling like I had a ghost in my nervous system, and I talked about feeling like there were glimpses somewhere out there in time and space. There were glimpses of myself, and I had to, like a 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle, I had to put pieces of myself back together. So it was very lyrical. It was very poetic. And also as my movement vocabulary began to increase again, and as I got my strength back, we recorded me moving in all those different stages. So the finished show was of me in all those different stages, from being kind of in this completely inner world to being able to dance full out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you performed that live now?
Yeah. We premiered it about three weeks ago. Yeah, and people just clapped and clapped and clapped.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, you had to take that on tour.
Yes. Yeah.
I want
I'd actually really like to bring it to England. I think because hidden disabilities are really talked about in England, I think it would do really well there.
we'd all come.
Yeah.
Um, amazing. Is there one takeaway that you could offer anyone that's listening to this that may be going, this is very much where I am. I'm struggling with this right now. What would your advice be?
Can I say the three things that I felt helped me the most?
Yes, of course.
Um, I would say breath work. At one point in one of your early videos, I think it was once I was on the live RRR on your website, you talked about breathing in for 3 and breathing out for 6. And I still use it as a daily practice. It's so simple, but it's just making your out breath longer than your in breath.
Mm.
And for me, it's like the easiest way I can calm my nervous
Yeah.
system down.
Yeah.
And that really, really was a turning point for me. So I think breath work,
Yes. Good.
obviously following your joy. Like if there's anything that you really miss doing in your life because you're not well, or anything that you've always wanted to do in your life, find a way to just begin to do a tiny bit of it. You know, like me getting in the kayak and just lying there. Like find a way to go and do something you love and let that hunger be the thing that propels you forwards into your own health.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Third?
And I think the third, which came from your meditation that you did on that YouTube that we've talked about, is even on your bad days, move a tiny bit. Like just do something even when you're having a bad day. Because I think that retraining your amygdala and your nervous system, like it's safe to move, is so essential.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to encourage people to do something for themselves every day because when you're really in the kind of the bottom pit of a crash, you can feel like I don't want to do anything. But even if there's something that you do is just breathe with more conscious awareness
Mhm.
for 5 minutes, that is you actively doing something to help your recovery. And I think, being in a place where you feel powerless and like there's nothing that you can do to help your recovery is really, really undermining for our kind of natural senses of what we need. So I love the fact that, that was a really big, big thing for you because I know for me that was, and that always has been, I need to just do something every day that is for me. And I try to do that still now, and I don't necessarily relate it to recovery from anything. I just have a kind of a common commitment to myself that I will do something that is for my well-being every day. And it could be whatever, doesn't matter, but it's a really good habit to make and then to keep because I think, many of us deprioritized before this journey, looking after ourselves in a way that really makes sense. So I love your 3 points. They're great. But Tara, I love your story. Your story's so beautiful. And it's obviously really tragic because that, very sadly should never happen to anyone, but these things do happen, and we're now able at least to talk about it in the media more and more. There was a lot of kind of, no, 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 this isn't what's going on. But I think it is now widely understood that there are many people who've been really badly affected by this. And it is so inspiring to see that you have come through and out the other side. And I think, a richer, wiser, even more beautiful person is, if that's even possible, Tara, then maybe that was there before. We'll never know because I didn't meet you. But I really hope anyone listening to this story is, hopefully inspired by Tara, whether you've had a vaccine injury or not. I think we do just sometimes need reminders to keep hope. And as Tara says, keep the focus on keeping those little pieces of you that float around at a distance. Just keep sight of them and know that they are not lost forever. And just keep that belief within your body, within your mind, because it will come back. It might be slightly different shape than it was. The puzzle might look a little tiny bit different when it's back on the table. But
Right.
thank you so much, Tara. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to the Rest, Repair, Recover podcast. If today's episode gave you hope, made you smile, or even just helped you feel a bit less alone, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and maybe share it with someone who might need it too. So until next time, take care of yourselves and know that you're not on your own.